And let me share my screen. Okay, so now we'll get to see the agenda, and I'm just gonna, what do I want to do? I want to move my chats so that I could see if there are any questions that are being posted. And I also want to see my participants list. I'm just going to pull this right over here to my other screen so that you all don't see that. All right, everyone. Welcome to the Discovery and User Experience, otherwise known as DUX, meeting today, July 27th. We have a little bit on our agenda to get through. So if you haven't already seen the agenda, I have it posted here, sharing with you all. We have Scott with us today, and he's just going to give us a bit of an update on our group, on the grouped working group.
Okay, yeah. So I may have talked about this a while ago, but I forget. It got off to sort of a false start at first. So with the work group, I can't even say it. The group working group, which I named in a poor taste, was it's a number of us who are in sort of the Aspen community, trying to get to the bottom of some of the common grouped work issues we have been seeing. And proposing solutions for that. So it's difficult because, we do still do a lot of manual grouping here at Swan Central. Some of your cataloging staff may also be helping out with that, depending on, where you are. And we see some of the same things over and over again in terms when we're looking into this data, but it's not been easy to really pin down. So we are trying to just sort of glean information at this point. So we're at an information gathering stage, which we've recently just started over because we were able to run. I'm going to steal the screen share from you.
I'll stop mine.
We were able to run a query, which was an SQL query, which became interesting. Are you seeing this spreadsheet, this horrible?
I could see it.
Great. So what this is a result of is a query against our Aspen, well, not our Aspen database. I'm showing you Nashville because my data is not in here right now. But the Aspen database on anything that's been manually grouped by a staff member. And so it's sort of the starting off point for this analysis. So it brings in the main title of the work, the alternate title that the group has, it's no longer visible in some places, but this is, what the alternate title could be, the variant title, and the same thing with the author string. Whether it's the same in the title line, whether it's the same in the author line. And then this is sort of where the meat happens. This note bit is we're trying to sort of glean what went wrong with this particular record. So, for example, in this line right here, this Agents of Suit grouped work was two works at one point because the title was either the author was John Green in one place, John Patrick Green in the other place. So then our goal with this line is to figure out, okay, where were these data points sourced from and what went wrong? So his conclusion was that his local database uses the authority record. I'm not sure which one of those this is, but the fact is that, a lot of our e-resources don't use the same authoritative headings that we do. So that's what it is. And so it's that, but what we're doing now is trying to kind of firm up this language. I mean, obviously, we don't want to be talking about specific ILSs in here when we do an analysis, but we do want to be talking, for example, about specific e-resource vendors. And that's really what a lot of this has been pointing to. I mean, some of the stuff is cataloging error occasionally. Some of it has to do with little variance in cataloging in general, but really the bulk of the mismatches we're seeing have to do with our e-resources. And I think we kind of knew that. But now it's just a matter of getting down to what each e-resource vendor is doing consistently strangely, or in a non-standard way. We have situations like this one where this book was part of a series. So one of those resources had a series name, Carl Weber's Kingpins Brooklyn, whereas another one just had the bare title. We have a lot of situations where one uses useful word, subtitle, excuse me, and the other one doesn't. We have other situations where one common one is, oh, here's one. It took me 1 second to find because it's so common. If a person has 3 elements to their name, Sonia Renee Taylor, they do appear in variant ways between, you know, an authoritative name versus the e-resource name. Of course, the in cataloging, and this can vary based on the language of the person's name. You know, sometimes surnames are considered to have multiple elements, sometimes only one. So, and it's sort of impossible for a computer to know where to place that line. So e-resource vendors tend to just rely on the very last element of a name, even if the surname is longer. So we're trying to get some language together to sort of group this stuff into, you know, where can we make the most impact? And I know that one of the solutions we're going to be proposing is the idea that, I mean, excuse me, not a solution. One of the issues we're going to run into is that it's not really in the cards to get the e-resource vendors to change their metadata. I mean, we can advocate, we can say, but at the end of the day, it's something that's out of our control. So what we would like to do instead is work with Bywater to see if they can do some transformation of this data based on its source and the common issues that we see, transforming 3-part names into a standard way that's closest to what we've got, adding or removing subtitles. Maybe it's a matter of comparing the elements of a name in any order. I don't know if that's possible, but you know, Caro Robert A, Caro, A Robert Caro, all meaning the same thing. I don't know if that would help, but it's a thought. Yeah, also maybe giving less explicit, you know, power to a subtitle. Maybe if the first few words of a title match, that might be enough. Although then we maybe run into issues with things that have similar titles or you know, numbered series. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but that's what we're working on. We're hoping to come forward with some solutions over the next couple of months, or at least suggestions, to make everyone's life a little bit easier with maintenance of this Aspen system. I think that's just about all I wanted to share. Are there any questions about that? Okay. Yeah, we'll
I
keep you
don't see any.
updated because, oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, I don't see any questions in the chat.
Great. Yeah, we'll keep you updated as this gets more interesting going forward. I just thought it might be fun for you to sort of know about what kind of work is happening behind the scenes.
Great. Thank you, Scott, for sharing that update with us and what you all are doing over there. All right, so the next thing on our agenda is our Aspen developments. Let me go back to sharing my screen. Why do I get so lost in Zoom? All right, share. Okay, can everybody see my screen okay? All right. So we had a new release for Aspen 2307. There wasn't a whole lot going on in this release this month, but kind of the big thing that came out of this release is the availability for public item notes to be displayed, which I guess was not a thing before. So I apologize. I've only been with Swan for about a year, so I'm still getting used to kind of the way things look and the way records are displayed in Aspen. Now, while this is available, it is not currently active. So right now, our bibliographic services team is sort of looking at all of the public item record notes, just to kind of make sure that if there's any cleanup that's necessary, that's going to happen before this gets pushed to be displayed in Aspen. Right now, there's also currently a bug with Aspen, and it is showing some of our, I have it written down here. It is displaying, oh my gosh.
It's the old circulation counts that we've used to
Thank you.
archive.
Yes. Custom notes. That's what you guys call it, right?
Yeah,
Custom
yeah.
note. Sorry, it's a custom no. So right now those are displaying and we don't want anybody to have to see that because that information is not useful for anybody anymore. So what we're doing is we're working with the Aspen developers to get that fixed and to only display the item records public notes. I will say that it will not display circulation or staff notes, so that's great. This may be something that your cataloging staff may wish to take a look at and see how they might want to use this feature moving forward once we do have it active. And of course, we'll update everybody when we make this available for all of our library catalogs. Are there any questions on the public item notes? Michelle is asking, would it be possible to show where the public note is in workflows?
Oh,
And if
yeah, I
anybody
can
on the
do that.
call here, thanks, Scott.
I have workflows up, so I'll just share again.
Great, I'll stop
So
sharing.
nobody has to open it. Share. Okay, so when you are in, and it really any of the places where you can modify item information, but I'll just go to modify title because it lets you do everything. I don't know if this one has any, but I'll show you where it is. So this is the bibliographic record here for whatever I just opened. I don't even know what this is. Under call number and item, the notes section is what's called this extended information section here. And so they've got all of these different categories you can add and remove notes in. And so public notes are those that are tagged public here. This one doesn't have one, but if I were to, that would then show up in Aspen after, after it gets updated here, in only because it's public. So the other ones, staff, circ, are automatically filtered by Aspen. What Aspen is not trained to do yet is filter out these 2014 circ, because these are things that Swan has set up. So Bywater wasn't aware that there would be other note types coming in, and that's the reason we have this kind of issue. So it's only prepared to respond to public, staff, and circ. So once they fix that, we'll be in good shape. Well, let me delete this and also not save. But that's where it is. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I don't have access to this side, but
okay.
Just on the item search, I see the circ notes and the staff notes. I think we just don't have public notes, so they don't come up, and I couldn't find any. But it would be in that same place, right?
Yeah.
If you want the example, there's that faces and places of the Fox Valley area.
Oh, right. So that's the thing you can search if you want to find a specific title that has one, faces and places of the Fox Valley area.
Yep.
As a title, I'm gonna browse it. It's this one, yeah. And so going into here, I forget who had it. Is it Caneville? Yeah, Caneville's. And you have to scroll down sometimes. They do not float to the top just because they're filled in. So this one's in their local history collection, and that's where you'll find it. And yeah, this is not editable from this end. Yeah. The public note is defaulted though, so there always will be a public line unless somebody's actively changed this around. So yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Scott, for sharing that. And yeah, so right now we don't have it on, but once everything is resolved and working, then we'll turn this feature on, and then we will let our libraries know that that is something, if your cataloging staff is interested in adding any type of public notes, that they can at that point. Let me go ahead and share my screen again. I'll be a pro at this by the time this meeting's done. All right. So the next thing that I wanted to show in Aspen, and this has sort of been bugging me since I started working here at Swan, is the e-content source. There's a fix for this, and I don't know if anybody on the call has the special scope enabled where you can filter out Hoopla titles if that same title is available in Overdrive or Access 360 or some other e-content vendor. But I'm going to go ahead and show you what that looks like. So LaGrange Public Library currently has that scope turned on. And I'm just going to do just kind of like this default empty search here. So online collection. If I go here and I just want to see what Hoopla offers, I think it's taken a minute for everything to kind of load here. So I'll just give that a second to go through. So you could see my top couple titles disappeared because they were available through another vendor. So now I'm only seeing what's available in Hoopla. So this is great. I don't know if anybody encountered this before, anybody on the call, but prior to this fix, when you would filter by Hoopla in the e-content collection, you would still see the titles, but there would not be a checkout button. It would just be empty. So it was kind of strange. It was not the best user experience, because a patron would be like, what is this title? What happened to it? Can I check it out or can't I check it out? Like, I don't understand. And that was because it was still, the title was still showing, but the availability was technically not there because it was available elsewhere. So that was fixed, and that was, I'm pretty happy about that. So you could see we've got Pride and Prejudice because it's available through Libby in Overdrive. That's why it doesn't show up when you filter down by Hoopla. So I don't know how many of you on the call, if you currently have Hoopla and you want to take advantage of that scope that is able to hide Hoopla titles if it's available through another e-content vendor. That is something that is available for everyone to take advantage of. You can put in a ticket with help@swanlibraries.net. It'll get sent over to myself actually, and I'll go ahead and take care of that for you. So right now we only have maybe about 2 or 3 libraries that currently have that scope enabled. So if anybody has additional questions about it, please feel free to reach out and ask, and I'll be more than happy to talk about it with you. Are there any questions about the release of Aspen 2307?
Can you give us a brief pros, cons on why we would want this scope versus why we wouldn't?
Yeah, so a big reason is the pay per use for Hoopla. Some libraries just have a very limited budget, and they were finding that the Hoopla titles float to the top. So a patron would just click Hoopla first without really, because it's just the first available option that's there. And so some libraries were getting concerned that there was really no way to make Hoopla float down. It's alphabetical order. So therefore, this was kind of a way to kind of wrangle it in and put a stop to possibly users just picking Hoopla just because it's the first option. So that's an option there for you. Yeah, that was pretty much the big reason behind that scope.
That's
So,
good. That's good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. It's totally optional. You can leave it as is, or you could choose to enable it. So it's entirely up to you. Yeah, are there any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I have one more question. Is it truly just if it is currently available to check out in Libby that you don't see Hoopla, or if it's checked out in Libby, then you do see the Hoopla option?
Right. Yeah. So if it's checked out, so not even if it's just available or a title that's owned, but if it's not available to, if it's currently checked out in Libby, then the Hoopla, if it's available in Hoopla, it'll show. The option will show for you.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And I think that scope, I think it was just being introduced when I started about almost a year ago, and it has had some pain points, but I think a lot of it has been worked out. And the libraries that have the scope turned on, I have not heard from otherwise, so I think they're pretty happy with it. So yeah, certainly something to think about and discuss with the rest of your library staff, if you're not the one that's able to make those decisions at this time. Right.
Olivia, one
Yep.
other question on that. Is there I'm sorry, there's a train.
Oh, I think we lost you.
I'm here. There's just a train
Okay.
going by right
Oh,
now.
sorry.
With that scope turned on, is there a search view that's available to staff that would let them see whether it is in Hoopla, or do we then have to go to Hoopla to confirm that the item exists in Hoopla? So if we're suppressing it from the search results.
Right. Yes, you would have to go to Hoopla.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
you're welcome. All right. I'm going to bring the agenda back up and see what's next. So we did the working group update. We covered our Aspen development for this month. Our next activity that I have is sharing our research project results. So I apologize, between the other meetings that I go, the other user group meetings that I go to, and I know I've attended the last couple of Ducks meetings, but were you all here the last several meetings? Are you familiar at all with this research project that Tara and the group have started?
Yeah, so my library decided, so for the study room survey or about databases and such like that,
Yeah, great.
my library, I asked them if we could implement this study room survey, and they came back to me and said, we are unclear how SWAN is going to use the data, and therefore we refuse to do a study room
Oh,
survey. So
all
I was
right.
like, okay, well, thanks, I guess.
Okay, I'm just writing that down so that Tara will be updated about that. How will we use this data? And that was for the study room, right? That one question survey.
Yeah, they didn't ask me that we were just, using it for this group or whatever, but that was their response.
Yeah, okay. And we might find that. Anybody else wish to share?
At Messenger, I tried to do the study room question survey. I didn't do them in the study rooms. I did them like outside the study rooms. I had little notes where you could write your answer. And they were out for the last week. Nobody replied to that survey.
Oh no.
I didn't do staff interviews, which was one of the other things, but I did a little like email survey, and I did get a handful of responses. I compiled right before this meeting. Basically, people like print books if they can, and we don't get a ton of reference questions. There's a little more detail if you want me to share at any point, but it's mostly and also I had one of the questions I had on there was, how often do you use library databases with patrons? One of the staff members said maybe 1 to 2 times a week.
Oh, okay.
One said like a couple times a year. One said basically never. So databases are not strong at Messenger.
Yeah. And I think we find that, right, it just maybe even in the public library domain, they're not quite as used as print resources or some of our other resources that are available within the library.
Would you like me to forward the details to anyone?
That would be great. If you can forward it to me, Olivia@swanlibraries.net, and then I will get that into a place where Tara could access that when she's back.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for getting those results and sharing that with us today. So just to kind of, I know the question that we're doing for the research project is, how are people accessing databases? So very simple question. And then there were we had those research plans for the May-June period, interviews with library staff and the paper activity, which of course, kind of it's either a hit or a miss. Did anybody do any of the quantitative, like any website or clicks or web page views on your database usage?
Our librarian who says she is in charge of the databases says she doesn't do website clicks. She doesn't know how.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I just did a couple. I was very curious about this myself. And I was interested in the placard clicks, right? Which is also one of our quantitative measurements that we could look at. So some of your libraries have placards where you may highlight a database that's available for use. So if a customer or a patron, I'm sorry, if a patron enters in, you know, new car or washing machine, then, you know, consumer reports might float up to the top and they're able to click on that. So I looked at our patron use report, and this is available on our Swan support site. I don't know how many of you are familiar with taking a look at this. I'm not completely familiar, so excuse me if I kind of seem to be squandering about a bit on here. But I took a look at, let me, I want all of the libraries back. Okay. So in recommendations, under Aspen recommendations and placards, we can see the placard clicks for the full consortium. And it's, you know, kind of broken down by month basis. So last month, for the month of June, between all of our libraries in Swan, there were 332 clicks for placards. And I was able to download a report of those, and I'm just going to pull it over. It looks ugly. It's an Excel file, but we had the event name, which is the placard click, the host name, which is the library catalog, and what the placard link was, right? Because we do, I mean, for the purposes of this study, we want to differentiate databases as opposed to, like, you know, a book discussion or some other sort of event that is also highlighted in a library placard. So we could see here the 332 for June 1st to the 30th. And I just want to pull up, I'm just going to click on one library. I'll do Oak Park. So here at Oak Park, we could see that there were 20 clicks for consumer reports. There were 6 clicks for Press Reader, 4 for LinkedIn Learning, and 2 for news. I think this is News Source Plus. It's a newspaper one. And I forget what this code is. I'll have to look that up. But these were all for database searches here. So it's very interesting to see that broken down like that. Clear that. But yeah, we could do, I'm going to click on, I'll go to St. Charles as well, because I think they had a good number of clicks. Gas in New York Times, a lot of some EBSCO searches, Freegal, Canopy, things like that you could see here. So I'm not sure how familiar are you all with the Google Analytics and taking a look at that, or if you have somebody in your library that does that. And I see Michelle advertising museum passes. Oh, great, Ashley. Do you want to share anything about Google Analytics?
I have not looked up our databases individually, but we have a research and learn page where they're all stored. You know, it's sort of like its own little database of databases. And it is, and I'm not totally certain why, it is one of our most visited pages.
Oh, great.
So I'm very surprised by that. It's like right up there with the homepage. So it is one of our top in the mega menu. It's like right up there in the navigation bar. So I think that really helps. But yeah, now I'm really interested based on what you just shared with placards, like which pages are getting the most visits on the website as well.
Yeah, and I know Google Analytics can be pretty robust, and I'm not familiar with this at all. This was sort of, I've spent a couple of days kind of looking at this in preparation for this meeting, but it is certainly a little bit outside of the scope of my knowledge. So, but yeah, I'm just going to click back to the patron use report. So again, and I think the reason why we don't have it broken down by the library is I think it comes across messy for us. But I know that you can really get in there and you know, really take advantage of taking a look at your analytics. So this is what it looks like here. And I downloaded I exported the data there. So you're able to enter your custom dates. And this was an event that was already set up. So this placard clicks and with the links. Yeah. So I was interested in the placard clicks because placards is one of the areas that I tend to in Aspen. I know some of our responsibilities kind of cross over here at Swan. Yeah, so I was very interested in that. How is anybody else want to share the results from their research? If anybody else has anything?
Unfortunately, I haven't been able to attend very many meetings, so I don't have
Okay.
anything. So I'm just very interested in hearing what folks have been working on.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa, for sharing that. I know it's not everyone is able to attend every meeting, you know, just due to the nature of the job, right? But yeah, this is an interesting project, and I know it's going to be ongoing for a little bit. I actually think Taro will be back for the next meeting in September. And I think there's going to be a little sussing out of this research information and kind of getting it more organized. Is there anything else we want to share about this? I'm sorry, I feel like I'm not doing this topic much justice. But you know, May to June is a tough time, I'm certain, for libraries, and just with summer reading and things like that, to try to do this research. And Kelly, for you, do you think, I mean, do you think library staff, the individuals that were asking how we're going to use this information, if we sent them something, or do you think they'd be a little bit more amenable to having a survey, or do you think it was just like it's a done conversation? No one's going to go for it.
It did seem pretty much like a done conversation, but
Okay.
you never know.
Yeah, that's true. We might have to put the feelers out, maybe
Yeah.
outside of this group, and see if you know, that this is something that we really want to have knowledge about and be able to present, have this research information, and see how patrons are accessing their databases, and you know, maybe ways we can improve that. I think is one thing that would be important, at least to me, being in my position, is how can we get our patrons to use them more? And you know, is it that we're you know, I don't know, maybe we need to look at other types of databases, you know, but it's hard to tell, right? This is a small group compared to all of Swan. Okay, well, I won't belabor this much more. If let me see. Oh, it looks like Ashley shared something in the chat.
I was able to pull up some of our stats for
Oh,
our
cool.
online
Yeah.
resources. So just sort of some of the top pages in the month of June.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, so this is all really interesting information, and I'm going to take a look at it a little bit more, because this is piquing my interest for placards, and just kind of seeing what patrons are looking at, what websites they're going to, and what databases they're accessing. I mean, outside of just, you know, our normal statistics and things that we get. Thanks, Ashley, for sharing that. Great. So I feel like I'm running through this meeting awfully quick, so I apologize. Is there anything else we want to cover for the research activity before we move on? All right. All right, let me go back to our agenda and let's see what else we've got. Yeah, so this next topic was just talking about our Libby Overdrive labels. Oh, wait, hold on one second. Lisa's posted a question here. Are the research activity details available in minutes? Yes, Lisa, they are available in the notes, as well as the previous recordings for the last DUX meeting, I think is where the research information and methods were covered. Yeah, so it's definitely available. And I think there are at least 2 more meetings this year for this discovery and user experience group. So there is a little bit of time, I think, to still round out this project. All right, so Libby and Overdrive. So in Aspen, we still have the Libby/Overdrive. Yeah, we still have those Libby/Overdrive labels here. Now, back when there were first talks about Overdrive being discontinued and Libby was going to take over for them, we were kind of caught in limbo. Aspen was sort of caught in limbo because some information was coming directly from the API. So there was just some things that were out of our control. It was still going to say Overdrive. And then we were able to switch to change some labels ourselves using the translation feature in Aspen, which is how we got this Libby/Overdrive label. I think this was brought up at a Dux user meeting. I think the end of last year was kind of like, well, when do we plan on changing all of the labels to just Libby, right? Because it can get confusing. Well, as of May, Overdrive is now done. And I forget what library was that brought it up to us. And they were like, so when are these labels officially going to change over? And so we talked about it a little bit. We met with the Aspen, with our Aspen group, and I think they're going to start working on that, on anything that's hard coded on the Aspen end that's coming from Overdrive so that it reads as Libby. And then on our end, I think we may have to do some translations to just officially change Libby/Overdrive to Libby. But I wanted to bring this to our group here. How do you all feel about that transition? Are we ready to make the cut and just get rid of Overdrive on our labels?
I don't have strong opinions one way or the other, but I did have a kid the other day come up and say, oh, I know about Libby. And I was like, yes.
All right, that's always great. And then Michelle posted in the chat, as long as we let everyone know it's coming ahead of time or that it is or occurred. Yeah, okay, we could do that. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it's, I couldn't remember based on other meetings over the past couple months, whether or not there was a reason why we were keeping Overdrive. Yep, Lisa says they're ready to drop Overdrive at any point. Yeah, and I think now that Overdrive is done, I mean, you can no longer download the app, you can't users are being redirected to download Libby or to open up Libby, that I think we can sort of make, yeah, let's go Libby. Yeah, I agree. Okay, then. So I think we stopped promoting Overdrive a few years. Yeah, okay. God, Overdrive still has name recognition in our library. We were a much slower adopter of Libby. Okay, Sarah. Is there anything else you want to share from St. Charles, Sarah, or do you think what else we could do in preparation? That way users don't feel like, what happened to Overdrive?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying like, I don't know. We're just a little slower over here.
Yeah, that's
Like we
okay.
still have a lot of people who are like, everybody's obviously moved to the Libby app. They're just like, oh yeah, Overdrive app for Overdrive books. Now we have to use the Libby app. Like
Okay,
they
yeah.
still think it's Overdrive. Like they still call it Overdrive, but they use
Yeah.
the Libby app to do Overdrive books. So people are still calling it Overdrive even though they're using Libby. So they still,
Just refusing to drop the name. It's like yeah, okay,
so
great.
it's so both terms are used kind of interchangeably here still a lot.
Yeah, I get that. And it looks like Michelle posted, I agree about switching. Don't want to get pushback from libraries that are also slower to transition. Yeah, so this is something I think we'll continue to maybe talk about here at SWAN, but once Aspen makes those changes, I think it's pretty much a done deal at that point. I think we'll have to switch everything over to Libby. Yeah, the website URL. Yeah, I did notice that too when I was doing some testing of things, that Overdrive is still in the URL. So it can be a little confusing, and we certainly don't want to confuse our patrons. So yeah, I think we'll look at it a little bit more, do some more testing, and talk about it as a group within SWAN and let everybody know when we do plan to make that change. I'm sorry, I think somebody unmuted. I didn't mean to cut anybody off. Okay. All right, so I think I know we talked about it a bit at here at SWAN about making that change, and we spoke with Aspen about it. We had some libraries again that were sort of like, when are we officially going to drop the Overdrive from the labels? So yeah, we'll just continue to take a look at that. No decisions are going to be made today or by the end of this week, so don't worry about that. And we will keep that in mind to just let all of our member libraries know that this change is coming, and maybe what things they can do to help their users kind of embrace that change a little bit better, if that seems to be an issue. I mean, I know you have to like download the Libby app and things like that, but some of our library websites, some of our libraries may not, maybe be actively promoting the switch to Libby. Was there anything else that we want to talk about today? We do have some time left. But
If we've got time, I agreed to talk a little bit about ducks at Swan Expo. And I was wondering if anyone had like highlights from the last year that they're like, you should totally tell them we did this. Because my memory's not good and nothing's coming off the top of my head. I'm going to have to do a little research. But if there was something you liked, please, I'll share it.
yeah, does anyone want to share anything that's happened over the past?
I'm looking back through my notes. I'll let you know if I find anything.
Thanks, Kelly.
That's awesome. Thank you.
All right, well, I'll stop the recording and then I will hang out for a bit just in case we want to discuss anything outside of the recording. If I could find it, that would be great. I'll stop sharing as well.